Welcome, welcome. I'm Steve.
I'm Kevin. Woohoo.
Yes.
I don't know why I cheered about that, but I'm so happy to be me.
Good, good.
Are you happy to be Steve?
Yeah, most of the time. In fact, yeah,
Oh, good.
I've got a great life. I just can't complain about anything really.
Oh,
That's pretty sad, really, isn't it? Like, it's
well,
not really
that's
that
good.
interesting. It's not
It's not
interesting.
sad that you've got a great life. That's good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, I'm a bit down today because I had a dream where I won the lottery, and in my dream I had a luxury yacht I was living on in a sparkling ocean in somewhere hot. So I thought that might be a sign I might win the lottery. So I entered it last night.
Oh
It
yeah.
didn't win the lottery. I thought, oh, God, so that's a pound wasted, and I only had like one number.
A pound. I thought it was £2 for the lottery now.
Well, I can't keep up. I haven't entered it for ages, but it was the Wednesday Thunderball one. It was only a pound.
Right.
A pound. It's like
Yeah.
Mr. Fiddler from Carry On Camping.
If I ever,
A pound per person or per tent, whichever the greater.
if I ever do the lottery, I'll do the was it for life one, whatever it is. Like if you win, then you get paid. You either get some massive lump sum, or you. Oh no, I think you've got a choice. But yeah, you just pretty much get money for the rest of your life. Ten
I'd rather
grand,
just
ten
have
grand a
the.
month.
Oh, well, no, if you got 5 million, the interest would be worth more than 10 grand a month, I reckon.
Yeah, but you would get taxed on it as well, though, wouldn't you? I know they say that you.
Really?
Yeah,
Mm.
I read somewhere that I know they say you don't get taxed on money that you've won in through gambling, right? But there is something to do with the lottery where they do. There is, I don't know what it is. I can't go into detail about it, but I did read something about it. And I did wonder whether this was a difference between like the United States and the UK laws or something. But apparently, if you get massive lump sum, money is taken off. You don't get the lump sum that is sort of stated.
Oh.
But if you get paid monthly, you do get the whole lot.
Ah. Ah, but you see, my plan would have been, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I suppose I could save up, but I'd like to, if I got like 5 million, I'd buy like, I don't know, 10 properties. So I've got a portfolio of properties, rent them all out.
Yeah,
That would generate the 10 grand a month, and I'd have asset. This
cool.
turned into a bit of a business kind of idea podcast. I don't
Yeah,
know where that came from.
yeah. The only
No
thing
one
is,
copied my idea.
yeah. Right. Okay. So, um, actually, before we go into it, because I've got some news articles to just run past you, and then we're going to talk about censorship. But before I do that, on the weekend, I went to see three showings, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night of Lord of the Rings extended edition. So it's pretty much like 4 hour films each night.
My blood. I've said before, my bladder wouldn't be able to cope in a cinema. I'd have to like pause the film regularly.
Yeah. Well, I managed. Well, I managed really well, and it didn't feel. That was the mad thing about those films are so good. It didn't feel like I was getting on to 4 hours. There is one point though. Maybe it's around the 2.5 hour mark where people physically do start to fidget because you need to sort of stretch your legs out a little bit, don't you? But it didn't. There was no point during the film where I thought, oh God, this is getting
Here's
on. Whereas when I saw Oppenheimer, there was a point pretty soon after they actually set off the bomb. Uh, there was
spoilers.
spoilers, yeah, spoilers. Um, yeah, there was a point where I physically thought, this is really crap now.
You
I've
normally like crap films, though.
no thing is with Oppenheimer is I've read so many people like, oh, it's amazing, it's this, it's that, right? Um, and it the problem with it is they build up this whole tension to the point like where they set the bomb off and then and it's all really sort of nobody knows if it's going to end the world and all this, but we know that it didn't end the
No,
world, right? We already know this, right? So the film is like, if you know nothing at all about nuclear about the history and and maybe you don't even know a nuclear bomb exists, right?
We-
Then maybe you know that the atomic bomb never existed, right? You've never known about it. Then you could watch that movie and get to that point and go, "Oh my god, that was gripping." I was sort of, "Oh," and then the when the bomb goes off itself, it's a little bit crap. It's a little just a bit underwhelming, and then the rest of the film is it might as well be another film,
well,
and
that
they try to make Robert Downey Jr. in it's his character into a sort of a thing, but he wasn't really in the movie enough to for you to give a crap. And anyway, I've got a bit of I've got a bit of a problem with Oppenheimer. Like people going on about how awesome it is, and I'm
but,
like, I think you're not being honest with yourself.
but
Seriously.
what's made me laugh there is the fact that you said that it's all right, Oppenheimer, if you don't know what a nuclear bomb is and you don't know that the world never ended. That's like, you could probably enjoy the Bible if you don't know that what's coming. You'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe they killed Jesus. Yeah, but keep reading. They leave it open for a sequel.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I feel the
but
complete opposite with the Lord of the Rings. It was and in fact, now that you said that about the Bible, right? Here's my theory: the apocalypse happens, right? Imagine this: the apocalypse happens, everything's destroyed, all adults are killed. There's some kids left, right? They start to rebuild society, and and they venture into this library, right? Or which is most of the books are all burnt and there's nothing left. But they pick up this big thick book and it's called Lord of the Rings, and they start to read it and they treat that as a true account of history. Now I think that could become the new Bible in this new scenario where nobody knew, when nobody remembers religion and history and
uh,
all of that.
but disclaimer: Steve here is not saying that the Bible is a fictitious piece of work by any stretch of the imagination. It is.
Well, I love the stories in the Bible. I was brought up in I went to a load of different churches and I went to a Catholic school, and I
So did
believe.
I. Primary Catholic school I went to.
Oh, did you?
Hated it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did mass and I did all of that kind of stuff. I didn't go through confirmation, but
No, nor did I.
my
Got out
friends,
of that.
yeah.
I faked being stupid at Bible courses, so I couldn't pass the test on purpose. I didn't want to do it. At an early age, I was pointing out the different flaws I was finding and say, but that doesn't make sense. Like, well, how does that work?
Yeah.
I wasn't liked.
They're like, this kid is just thick. I'm sorry, you can't do it. And they're like, okay. You're like, yes.
I once
But
got trouble in with another kid at school threatened or grasped me to a teacher when I was a kid. He was going around saying, "Do you believe in Jesus and all that?" And I said, "No." Oh, I'm telling the teacher. So he went and told on me, the teacher, the little snitch. And
yeah,
I'm thinking, I'm in so much trouble here. But, I can't remember the name of the teacher now, but she said, well, that doesn't matter. Everybody has different beliefs. I was like,
there
oh,
you go.
that
See,
stuck with me, that.
yeah. See that? I mean, that's a good thing. Like my secondary school taught religion in a really kind of open way. We learned about different religions as well, and there was nothing really forced down your throat. You always did prayers in the morning and stuff, but you.
Remind me, you went to a
I know what
Catholic
you're.
school.
I knew exactly what you were thinking there.
You just like opened the door and I went there.
Disgusting. It's vile. So,
Yeah.
anyway, Lord of the Rings, right?
Oh
Lord,
yeah.
my only complaint about it would be that there's okay, if I was being really, really, really critical, right? The story's awesome. The extended versions are so good. I remember watching the originals that weren't the extended versions and thinking that, oh, like it felt stuttery. Like there were bits cut out, and I felt like I knew where those bits were. Do you know what I mean? I was like that's gone into this bit too quickly. I know that they do jump around from character to character, different locations, and all that throughout the film, like at a fair pace. But I physically felt that there were bits missing, and I was fully satisfied watching all of these extended versions on the
I
week.
would say I would say that those films is the greatest trilogy that has ever been made, and you're never going to see anything like it again. Two reasons why I think it's the greatest trilogy ever made is the fact that the source material they based it on is an amazing piece of literature,
Mm-hmm.
and the actual way that they gave Peter Jackson a relatively not a massive Hollywood director. He did a few independent like horror films and things. So they gave Peter Jackson the money and the permission to film all three of these fantasy movies in one hit with a huge budget and a risk to the studio.
Hmm.
Um, and considering that fantasy films had not really been that popular through the decades, and the fact that even now with a big film like you've got the latest Dune films, they only greenlit the first one to see how the first one would go before greenlighting the second one. And I
Yeah.
don't think any studio would take any risks like that anymore.
Mm. I think you're
Um,
right.
and and what also freaks me the fact that you could watch a Lord of the Rings movie now and not feel that it's 20 years old.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the,
no, you're right.
well,
It's not 20 years old, but they were the like when they do the sort of the widescreen sort of view of the landscapes and stuff. If you've got when you've got the characters running about on things, you do notice that the graphics aren't quite right, not up to today's standards. Saying that though, Gollum is fantastic all the way through. There is I couldn't fault the animation around Gollum at all the way
I
through. Just brilliant.
I think some of the problem that they have is the higher definitions that we have now shows up the sort of the wider angle stuff maybe. But it's
Yeah,
also they don't linger on those shots too long, which is quite good. But the weird
no,
thing is if you think about if you was in the year 2000
mhm,
and no, if you're in like say you're like 1985 for example, and you had it was a good year for film, you had Back to the Future and all that sort of stuff
yeah,
out by then. So 1985, go back 20 years from 1985. So you're talking 1960, a film from 1965. There's a world, they're worlds apart from what you'd be
yeah,
watching in the 80s. Now you go back 20, Lord of the Rings, it holds up by today. You can watch
yeah.
kids today could watch that and not think it looks really old and rubbish.
Well, yeah.
Where
I mean, this is what I mean. Like, being if I'm being so like ultra picky, this isn't a problem with the storyline or anything. It's all good. It's there's two things. One of them is you can really see the plastic sort of masks on the orcs and stuff. You can actually yeah, like the makeup isn't done as good on some of them. And you can really, I could really tell that on the cinema screen, but it didn't ruin anything. The other one that did kind of get on my nerves a little bit was they go from like really like high definition view of like say Gandalf talking about something, and then it does this wide view of the landscape, like the mountains or something, and it sort of pans around. Every time it did that, the quality went down. It went fuzzy. It was almost like it went from 4K to standard TV. Um, and I was a bit sort of puzzled by that in
I'm
the cinema.
surprised by that because it
Yeah,
was all it's not like some of the older films that I've got that have been upscaled that you get a bit of grain on certain scenes on upscaled 80s films.
mm,
Highlander's quite bad for that in places. It's got a grain where they've upscaled it so much. Um, but that shouldn't be the case with the Lord of the Rings. But I know there was a processing fault on it because I've got the Blu-ray editions of it, and they transferred it to Blu-ray, it copied over a filtering problem they had. So on there's I think it's either a blue or a slight green tint to every scene within the Blu-rays. Now I know that they've removed that for the 4K edition, which I want to get next. And if you go on YouTube and have a look at the comparisons, you can see where they've removed that filter. The colours just pop so much. I wonder if that's
no,
the version that you saw in the cinema.
that could be. You might have hit the nail on the head with that one. Mm.
But
Overall,
that's
though,
the worth
brilliant.
buying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the to me is the greatest film trilogy that has ever been created
Mm.
thus far. Um, I'm not going to include Star Wars in that one. I enjoy Star Wars, but and it was game changing at the time. But I think for pure quality and everything, it doesn't compare to the Lord of the Rings purely for the source material.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Definitely.
can't think of any other trilogy that's up there with the Lord of the Rings. Um,
Would you not? What about the Hunger Games? Those films. I really enjoyed those films.
I enjoy the Hunger Games. I've read the books first, so I've liked the books and I like the what they film with the Hunger Games. But again, it's not up there, the source material with the Lord of the Rings. And a lot of it is quite derivative of other sources and things. I know
Mm,
there's no original work out there, but it's very battle royale.
yeah,
Um, but I think what elevates the Hunger Games, though, above a lot of the young adult fiction stuff, there's a lot of deeper themes that you can see working in there about political elites and stuff,
yeah.
which seems quite relevant today.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, we'll get onto that in a second. But shall I go on? Shall I give you a few headlines? See what you think.
Give me some headlines.
Okay, so headline
No, I said
Sky.
headlines.
Okay, from Sky News. Herd of sheep eats 100 kilograms of cannabis in Greece after the Storm Daniel floods.
Oh my god,
So
that was really bad of them.
yeah, heat waves, wildfires, extreme flooding, and then sheep eating tons of cannabis.
What? Oh, what was it?
So
Just growing wild, the cannabis.
it says that the sheep invaded a greenhouse producing medicinal cannabis. Yeah, right. The owner said the crop had already been badly damaged by a heat wave, because of climate change, presumably, and Storm
Yeah.
Daniel, and the sheep because of climate change, and the sheep had finished what was left. So
Oh,
I mean, it doesn't
did
say
it?
that.
Are the sheep okay?
Yeah, it doesn't say that they died or anything. It was just being high as a kite. So
Oh. Can
and
you
then
get? Would you get high just by eating a raw cannabis plant, or does it need to be processed? Like you wouldn't
no, I
eat
think
a
you.
tea plant and
Yeah,
enjoy tea, would you?
no, I think you probably have. You'd still get some of the effects because is it the THC in it or something? It's in the plant,
I,
isn't it? So
I,
I don't know.
I
You might
don't.
be a bit ill.
Yeah, I don't know enough about cannabis, but
Hmm.
I always thought there's prepping. You wouldn't. Could you just eat a cannabis leaf and get high? I don't know.
I don't
Is it
know.
like a magic mushroom? Is that a
N-
real thing? Magic
Nah.
mushrooms as well? Can you pick a
Yeah.
mushroom and get high of a mushroom?
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't you have to prepare certain types of mushrooms? I
I
think
don't know. I think people are in the wrong business of growing like cannabis plants. Surely, like
just grow some
mushrooms
mushrooms.
grow in the dark, in damp,
Yeah.
dark. You would never get caught doing that. I'm not suggesting anyone grows magic mushrooms, but
These
and
button
they don't
mushrooms aren't doing
smell.
much. I've had a whole punnet of these button mushrooms and they've done nothing.
I don't know. I kind of just wave your magic wand over them and you make them
Yeah.
magic. Um,
Well, and well, just getting to the end of this article, as we predicted, the Greek Prime Minister has said that the country faces significant challenges due to climate change.
God, here we go.
Okay. Let's not get into climate change. Okay, what do you think about this one? Man arrested after free climbing London's cheese grater skyscraper. So, he's gone
What
and
was it?
He's climbed the skyscraper in London, and with no safety ropes, and he's been arrested for it.
What's the offence?
I've got, I've really got no idea. Um,
Uh,
he hasn't stolen anything. He hasn't caused any damage.
oh,
Um,
hang on. They I wonder if he's one of these free runner people then that do all this, and they maybe they've got a community protection notice or a criminal behaviour order with conditions not to lark about on buildings, and he's
mm,
breached that
maybe. It
because
says
he
here that the 24-year-old.
trespass. Oh,
Well,
that's not illegal trespass.
this could be why he got arrested, right? Because he's a failure. He's an utter failure. The 24-year-old was forced to abandon his attempt when he intercept. Oh, okay, sorry. It was the authorities that made him abandon his attempt. They intercepted him on the 73rd floor
Oh
of
my
the
god,
123-story tower. So yeah, he's just wearing shorts, making his way up the south side. Oh, hold on a
Spider
minute.
Man.
Hold on a minute. They've conflated two stories here. So you got oh right, okay. So you've got yeah, they've conflated two different stories. So they've got the man climbing up London's tallest buildings, and then it goes magically starts talking about some guy in South Korea who got arrested and the police caught him halfway up. So actually, the guy in London, um, I think he scaled the whole thing.
Oh,
There you go. Well done,
that's
you.
impressive.
Don't know what he's arrested for though. Oh, hold on. A man has been arrested for aggravated trespass. Aggravated trespass. I'm not sure about aggravated trespass. That sounds a bit of a.
Don't you have to have a weapon on you or something like that?
I would have thought so. Like anything aggravated, you need some
Because
kind of weapon, don't you?
trespass is a civil matter. It's not illegal.
Yeah. Hmm. No idea.
Like
Okay.
little tip for your kids: when you see those signs that says trespassers will be prosecuted, prosecuted for what? It's you're not going to prosecute for a civil offence.
No, exactly. Okay, so next story. Crocodiles save a dog stranded in the river instead of eating it. So there's an actual
Okay.
video of three crocodiles saving a dog after it like falls into a river. Um, and now I'm thinking that maybe the crocodiles were just sort of circling, um, about to eat the dog, and through some fluke they've kind of snapped, and he's like pushed his leg out, and then he's kind of they pushed him out of the. You know what I mean? Like this can't like unless they've
No,
just been fed. Like a crocodile that's just been fed isn't likely to come and eat you, other. But
I
I just
don't know. I'd have to see the video. I don't believe crocodiles are going around saving animals.
yeah, weird.
I mean, the very fact that they're reptiles, they're cold-blooded reptiles that don't have empathy. They have the
Exactly.
reptilian brain.
Yeah. Well, what they're saying is that there is they chose to nudge the dog to safety. I'm not sure about. I don't think their intentions were
No.
what we think. And scientists say it might be sentient behavior suggestive of cross-species empathy. I
What?
I don't believe that.
Cross-species empathy?
Yeah, this no.
No, no, they. I could believe maybe if it was anything but a reptilian-brained crocodile.
Yeah,
I mean, they talk about reptilian brain being particularly cold and lethal,
exactly.
lacking empathy,
Yeah.
which is
Anyway,
why most politicians and things are apparently reptilian hybrids. But there we are.
and I fully believe that. And that anyway, that happened in the Savitri River in India. Maharashtra is the place it was. So that's a weird one. Um,
I reckon if you look at this, they've made the video, they've strapped the crocodiles' mouths up so they can't snap at it, and they've filmed it to make it look like they're saving a dog so it would go viral.
yes,
And they purposely put the dog in there. That's what I reckon's happened there. Call me a cynic, but
yeah, I think you're probably right. Okay, well, I'll end with the news on this one. The Coast Guard arrests a man trying to run a giant hamster wheel across the Atlantic.
oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So the U.S. Coast Guard found this guy, right, who's made this a hydropod. It's a big sort of hamster wheel with flotation sort of buoyancy aids around the outside, and he can just run in it. And
Oh.
there's kind of what would you call them? Flaps, for want of a better word. So as he runs, the flaps go in the water, and it kind of just pulls him along. And he was attempting to run across the Atlantic like some kind
Oh.
of nutcase. I don't. I mean, I'd love to see how he would fare in like really bad weather. Say a storm came along. I mean, could he survive? Would that thing hold together? It's made of metal, so I can't
Um,
see why it wouldn't.
well, you'd need a load of supplies.
He
He's
told the
invented a new style of boat.
yeah, well, yeah, or individual boats. You see, but he told the officers that his destination was London, England.
Oh, I suppose the problem is he'll be bypassing all your security and border control, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and I mean the other problem is he can you run across water in this device for 4,000 miles?
Well, if it's got this flat thing, maybe like for every step he does, it's far. It's like riding a bike kind of thing. Maybe
Yeah,
that's a long way to go.
yeah.
I mean, you do
I
it
mean,
in stages. I reckon you could probably do about 40, 50 miles a day, 50 miles per day.
yeah. Well, you can do that walking. And I mean, if this device can go quite quickly across the water,
So maybe twice the speed of walking, 100 miles per day.
Yeah,
Well, that's still
it's gonna take him a while.
um, how many times does
40
100 go into 4,000 miles?
or 40, innit?
40
Yeah.
days. So just over a month. But you need a lot of supplies because
Well,
you're.
I don't think he had much either. This could give you a bit of an insight into his state of mind as well, because when they told him that they're going to end his voyage, he has to stop. He said that he had a 12-inch knife and he would attempt to kill himself if they attempted to
Ah,
remove him from the vessel.
he's a nutcase. Yeah.
You're an otter. So
Yeah, at first I was thinking he's an innovative guy that's created a new method of traveling, maybe. No, he's a guy with a knife that will
yeah.
be mad. How far did he get?
I don't know. It doesn't say how far he got, but they've just seen this guy run along. Someone's probably called them up. Oh, hold on. I'll tell you how far he was. He was 70 miles. He was 70
Oh,
nautical
God.
miles east of is it Tybee Island? Just
So he's got
nutcase.
nowhere.
Well, what's 70 nautical miles? I don't even know.
Why
I,
couldn't
I
I just call it 70 miles? Why do you call it
yeah.
nautical miles?
Is
Just
it? Are they
miles.
different? Are they different?
Oh, I don't know.
Miles a mile, in it?
Uh, I don't know. Maybe well, it's like with tennis. Instead of going 1, 2, 3 points, it's like juice and love and stuff. And like, well, then just say 1 point each, or
Yeah.
uh, or
Well,
maybe
sorry, go on.
no, maybe it's some weird. Well, it's like they don't call it left and right, starboard and port, but
Yeah.
it's left and right. Like, just say what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, because then it's like us learning a new language. We have to sort of convert. Oh yeah, what's starboard? No, right, port. I don't know. I'm pretty sure
They've
that.
just done it. They've done it to make it difficult for us to get into the shipping industry, I swear. Like, you don't know what a nautical mile is? Well, what about left and right? You don't call them left and right on board a ship, do you? And what's the difference
Yeah,
between a ship and a boat? There you
yeah.
go.
Well, I was gonna tell you about some woman from Michigan who got trapped inside a toilet because she dropped her phone in there and tried to get it or something. But I think we'll just move straight on to because that's another crazy story. Um, to censorship. So I'm gonna try and concentrate on like government censorship more than anything. So thinking about the recent report stroke allegations made against Russell Brand.
We've got to be
Um,
careful here, haven't we?
well, yeah, because there's been
We might get
allegations,
censored.
innocent until proven guilty, and all that. But
We
he's
might get sued.
we might, yeah, by who? Who are we gonna get sued by? Uh,
As
any?
Rocky said in Rocky 5, I'll sue you for what? There you go.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so so you got these allegations that made against Russell Brand. But it's brought up some really interesting conversations. I've seen it on all news channels and but about government censorship, but not like outright censorship, like authoritarian states, but censorship in the sense that when Dame Caroline uh, Dinenage or whatever her name is, Dinenage, she's the chair of the House of Commons Media Committee, and she wrote a Rumble because Russell Brand's got a deal with Rumble. That's where he puts all his content. He also puts his content on YouTube,
YouTube,
and
yeah.
YouTube demonetized him apparently
Uh-huh.
because of these letters apparently. But so she wrote to Rumble. The reason I mentioned Rumble is because they sort of push back, um, and I'm not sure about. Okay, I am sure about her intentions, right? But I'm going to say I'm not sure about her intentions. I'm not sure what they exactly were, whether they were to put pressure on Rumble or what, or whether they're just asking questions. But in her letter, she expresses concern that Russell Brand may be able to profit from his content on Rumble. And despite allegations of sexual assault and emotional abuse against him, like it's almost like why should he be making money if somebody's making an allegation against him? You're like, right, well, I'm not really sure about that, but
Because they're innocent until proved guilty.
exactly, not diminishing any sort of victims, and not disbelieving victims and all that, but still, you have to have some kind of balance, don't you? But so she asked Rumble to confirm. This is the asking questions bit. Asked them to confirm whether he's able to monetize his content on the platform, and if so, whether they, as in Rumble, intend to suspend his ability to earn money, just like YouTube did. And Rumble responded to her letter by calling it deeply inappropriate and dangerous. The company said it will not join the cancel culture mob, and that it will continue to allow Russel Brand to publish content on its platform. And straight away, I'm like, good on you. Do you know what I mean? If there's, I can imagine, if allegations made against Russel Brand, some companies are going to say, look, we've got a reputational sort of thing. We're going to have to cut ties with you or whatever for now until, maybe later on when everything's sorted. Hopefully, that kind of thing. But for somebody that I just, there's controversy, right? Just because of his presence on Rumble, it's just like raised questions about. Firstly, it's raised questions about the role of social media platforms in moderating content, and some people believe that the social media platforms have like a responsibility to remove content from users who've been accused of serious crimes. Now, I would say there's a difference between being accused of something and being actually proven found guilty of something. So I'm still not 100% sure on. In fact, I am sure. I don't think anyone should be banned from anything unless they're actually convicted of something. Um, Others believe that like social media platforms shouldn't censor any content. And I'm kind of more on that side of things, even if it is controversial or even offensive, because from my point of view, if you start censoring even offensive material, although it might be offensive, um, on the one hand, you might think, well, what is offensive? Because some people find all kinds of things offensive. Like, looking at comedy, some people can't stand certain comedians. Actually, like Russel Brand's a good example of this. I didn't like Russel
Mm-hmm.
Brand years ago. Didn't really like his comedy. Um, but I've seen him a couple of times now. In recent years, and actually, I really like him. But I think he does things a little bit quite different now.
Yeah, he's
Um,
evolved. He's different. It's a different landscape.
yeah,
You're sort of like you would expect there to be some allegations being churned up from the past that he's lived, but I'm surprised there's a few allegations that has been turned up.
yeah, yeah.
The other point around what we're saying there is that if you remember with Jimmy Savile, they wanted to do a documentary based on what they were hearing from people saying what he was doing, but they
Hmm.
stopped them making that documentary. And it wasn't until after he died and people started to come forward that they started making these documentaries.
Hmm.
So they had allegations, official allegations to police, where what this Channel 4 documentary's done is they've paid some, or well, they've got actors to
Hmm.
speak the words of anonymous people that haven't gone to the police and called that, and that, well, that could be like, how do we know all that is real? There's
Yeah,
no one's gone to the police yet with any allegations, and it's
yeah,
the same way that was it with Philip Schofield? They knew for years that there was a dodgy relationship going on there,
yeah.
but it
Nothing
was
was
only
done.
when it started to come out and they sort of tried to defend him a bit, and then sort of like then he sort of resigned himself, but
Hmm.
they didn't do a documentary on him or anything like that, did they? Exposing
No,
him.
and
Hugh
also
Edwards.
I mean, I do think that comparing Russell Brand, the allegations against Russell Brand, and then comparing that to like Jimmy Savile, is they're still worlds apart.
Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah.
Savile was like an awful paedophile, and that's not what the allegations are for Russell Brand. But
But the difference is though that they didn't want to run with the awful paedophile story, but the allegations against Brand, which like going back years,
mm,
they want to run with that though. And you're
yeah,
like, oh, but hang on a minute, that was a far worse person that you should have exposed years before you did.
yeah,
So why are you going for Brand? There you go.
yeah, and that's why sort of conspiracy theories start cropping up, isn't it?
Well,
Um,
they've just released the online safety bill has gone for royal assent, so it's been passed in Parliament,
yeah,
which
yeah,
gives them the power now to deem that any online content they believe or reasonably believe that it could cause harm in any way, they can get it pulled.
yeah.
So it's
Well,
someone's belief.
We'll
I
we'll
think
look.
that's going to cause misinformation and going to cause people to stop believing what we're saying here and work against the government. Get rid of it.
Well, we'll look at that in a sec because I think that's a really interesting point. But I was just to finish off the offensive bit. Um, if you've got something that is truly offensive, as in like racial sort of language and stuff that actually you would class as a hate crime, you know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
then then yeah, that if it's a crime, then it should be that is something that you could probably justify
Well,
taking off. Do you know what I mean? But
well,
anything
here's
else,
an
people
inter-
find all kinds of things offensive.
but here's the interesting thing, and I always use this thought theory, right? If
Mhm.
you had someone in the street talking about doesn't think that being gay is right and start spouting a load of stuff about gay people, right?
Mhm.
But they're reading out of the Bible, and there is a lot of stuff within the Bible that says that. Is that
Mm.
hate speech? And if so, you can go into any shop and buy that book. Should they ban the Bible?
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? That I
Who's
think.
committing the offence? So if you say
Well,
it's
oh,
part of your religion,
is there an offence in the first place? Because as far as I can see, you can talk about whatever you believe, whatever it is. You can talk about it. Um, it becomes more of a hate crime when it has to be an element of hate, doesn't it? Really, surely, is that how it works? Um,
I don't know. There's some pretty hateful bits you could read out in the Bible.
there's all kinds of. I
That
mean,
yeah,
go back to the Old Testament. There's
yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff. But I don't know. I think what's more concerning than sort of the platforms themselves, though, is the fact that this Conservative Party politician, like the chair of the House of Commons Media Committee, someone
Yeah,
who quite rightly has been vocal in the past. She's been like a critic of social media companies, and she's called for them to do more to protect users from harmful content. But it's just worrying that she and
uh,
others think it's okay to write to social media companies to pressurize them. And I know that GB News were written to as well, so it must have been other news organizations as well. But um, it's worrying that they think it's okay to write to these companies and pressurize them into demonetizing a person who hasn't been found guilty of any crimes at this
go
moment in
and
time. I
go
think
and
it's
look at
shocking.
who her husband is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So her husband, he used to be the head of the 77th Brigade,
Brigade or something. Yeah,
which was something that they
a
called
psyop.
the Nudge Unit, wasn't it?
Yeah, a psyop basically
So,
unit
yeah, yeah,
to affect public opinions and ideas, and they were involved heavily with the censorship through the pandemic.
yeah,
They were pushing their own sort of ideas,
yeah,
and yeah, so they had it was about 300 strong department or something. A
yeah,
lot of people invested in this psyop kind of stuff.
yeah. And
But what makes
I
me
think, sorry, go on.
So it's what makes me wonder now is because they're going for GB News is coming under fire at the moment. Admittedly, the bloke said some stupid things on air, but they seem to be targeting GB News that they were doing a lot of kind of what you would say is controversial reporting or going against what the mainstream was
Yeah,
saying.
I know that Lawrence Fox he gets a lot of complaints anyway,
Yeah,
and they've they they've implemented a I forgot what he calls it now. It's a horn that sounds whenever he's going too far or he needs to provide a balance to the argument. So GB News is all about having both sides of the argument all the time, and
yeah.
they deliberately as much as I've seen on JB News, they usually 99% of the time have got two completely different views going on. So it's quite good in that sense. What's interesting though is you don't find that so much on other channels, other mainstream channels. Oh,
No, I don't watch mainstream news anymore. It's pointless
yeah,
because they're all spouting the same opinion, or the same. Well, they're spouting the same thing with a slightly different take on it, their take, but ultimately they're saying the same things. And they're
oh
not.
god,
It's got worse in recent years.
yeah, it has.
Um, they're all singing from the same hymn sheet. You know,
Yeah,
they're all talking about. They won't disagree or challenge anything anymore. So people have turned, I think, to social media stuff on YouTube.
yeah,
Like Russell Brand, 6.6 million viewers or million subscribers.
subscribers, yeah,
That's more than what, and his videos get a good 100,
yeah,
400,000 views. That's more than the news gets. So they're
Yeah.
worried that look at the sphere of influence this guy's got.
Well,
They don't
exactly. I
like
mean,
it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I just finished my article and something we discussed before, but it was the sort of the fears through the decades, and something I touch on in there is about the way media is consumed now, and I think that has had probably quite a negative effect on the way news organizations operate now. Before it was about selling papers and all that, and they might provide two sides of a story. But now it's all about clicks, clickbait.
Well,
That's what I mean. And usually, what you find is look at the headline and then go to the last paragraph of a news article, and you'll get some form of truth there. The rest of it is a little bit kind of just like it's a story. It's trying to keep you interested. It's not.
well,
It's a bit of a
I've I was thinking the other day about all this, thinking, well, I like a good conspiracy theory. I always have, and I'll watch all these different YouTube stuff. But I realise that, yeah, oh God, yeah, the government are lying about that, and that probably means they're doing that. But there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to change any of that.
yeah.
I'm just kind of like, oh, yeah, I can see why they're doing that now. It's not like I'm going to go out there and destroy the government. I can't. I
Mm,
recognise the system that I'm born into, and I don't see the danger in it. But when I think about it, was a straight. We've got to talk coded about this kind of thing. But in a certain event that occurred between 2020 and 2022, um, there was people had something in their brains that you either, like me, I thought I was thinking I don't actually believe anything they're saying, or I'm not having a certain medical thing done, or I'm
yeah.
not wearing that anymore. But then
Hmm.
others are like, my God, you're irresponsible. You have to do that. It was like one extreme to the other. It was
Yeah.
almost like some people had something in their brains that were saying, I'm not having any of that. And others were fully focused on it all and buying into these witty little Chris Whitty standing there with his prepared questions and answer sessions,
Yeah.
and like, oh my God, and all the it was like a psyop, and some people went full in on the psyop. Even family members I know don't
Well,
talk to me because of it. Friends have fallen out over it, and you're like,
I think it's terrible, because I mean, I try to take a bit more of a balanced view, but if you nobody's even keeping up with it now. I'm saying nobody, but a lot of normal, ordinary people who still believe that masks are good and
yeah,
they'll have the next vaccine and all that kind of stuff. They they're not keeping up with the latest news. Like if you watch John Campbell, he talks
he's
about
the doctor on YouTube, though, isn't he?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
So
see, this is the thing. It's because some people are like, well, that's YouTube. That's all conspiracy nutcases. I get it from the BBC, and the
yeah,
BBC aren't telling them that.
yeah.
I think that could
Well,
be it. What you there? It's because I've watched for a balance. I will go onto these other channels, and
mm,
I'll be quite open to listen because I can see that there's a bias within the media, and not one of those journalists asked any probing questions during those years.
yeah,
Like, well, why aren't you not asking them about the
mm,
effectiveness of that? Why are you
exactly.
not asking them about the death rate figures?
Yeah,
Why you, they weren't? So
and
I had to go
they still
onto
aren't.
social media. They're still not questioning
They
any of it.
still not, and that is why Russell Brand gets such a huge following. It's because he's providing a different sort of side of it, and it's not a different side actually. He's providing both sides, but
But
he's kind of taking the Mickey out of the obvious biases that you see in these articles that people are writing and news reports, and
I
it's plain to see, and it's even more plain to see when somebody presents it in the way he does. And I think people crave that, which is why they're turning off from people are turning off from the
Yeah,
BBC and
because
stuff. And
they're just lying. I just think to myself now, so they were bang on about excess death figures and dying of a certain disease within a certain number of days, etc.
mm,
Right, okay. But why are they not question? We've got a higher excess death now than we ever did through those years
yeah,
by not just a little bit, by a lot. But why are we not doing it? Why are we not talking about this? Why are
mm,
we not questioning what's causing that? Why are we ignoring the increase of heart attacks everywhere that's killing
yeah,
young people? That's not spoken about anymore.
mm,
But it was, but even when during those certain years of where we were restricted, um, you didn't have those sorts of deaths. It didn't tally up. It
mm,
wasn't excessive to what it was the 5 year average, and you could see that yourself if you dug into it. but we have got those figures now. So what's going on? But
Yeah,
they're like, hush. And when there was that MP that even asked questions about that, he's got sacked and kicked out of Parliament for
yeah.
asking.
Bridgeton, is it Bridgeton?
Bridgeton, yeah, Andrew
Yeah,
Bridgeton.
Andrew.
Like,
Yeah,
well, he was asking relevant questions like, what's
yeah,
going on?
exactly. We've lost inquiring minds. But anyway, back onto the censorship. We don't want
Yes.
to go too far off on the event that happened that we can't talk about. Um, I think so. Some people have said that going back to the letter that was sent to Rumble. Some people have said that she's only asking questions. But if someone in a position of power, if your boss or anybody, but if someone from the government
Yeah.
um, writes to you about something in the same manner she does, you'd feel pressurized too. I think anyone would feel pressurized. So I think others have sort of, and then you've got others that have pulled advertising funding
Burger King.
from Rumble. Got companies like Burger King,
Yeah.
HelloFresh, and I've
Yeah.
personally cancelled my HelloFresh subscription because just for getting involved in the politics of it all. I'm like, well, there's just
So
no need at all.
what you wonder is, have the government written to Burger King, Hello Fresh, and said, we don't appreciate you sponsoring these people?
Yeah.
Or have these companies just gone, oh yeah, we're going to lose, we're not advertising there anymore?
No, the two involved in the politics of it all, and um, yeah, I mean the connection with Rumble only comes because he's got some kind of deal with Rumble. So they're pulling their advertising from Rumble. Like I could understand if they were pulling their advertising
From
from Russel
him,
Brand
yeah.
himself, right? That makes sense. But you're pulling advertising from Rumble. But why not pull it from YouTube as well? I mean, YouTube they might have demonetized them, but they're still playing these videos. I don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's this sort of coordinated attack for anyone that is on believes or is on one side of the argument, who so they'll just go right all in to try and
Well,
take as much money off him so he can't defend himself, and and sort of destroy him in that kind of way.
well,
You're getting too rich, gonna have to destroy you because of it.
well, they
Um,
figure that, oh, right, so, okay, if they banned all his videos, people would be like, bloody hell, he must be saying the truth, right? So
mm,
if they take away his ability to earn from making videos, it'll be a case of why would he put all that effort and time into doing something that's not making him money? So they
yeah,
shut him up that way by removing his funds.
yeah,
Where if you actually just banned him, you, I think they'd be stepping over into proper dictatorship kind of stuff
yeah,
because he's very careful what he says.
yeah,
He he he'll say allegedly they've done this, but I can't possibly say that's true or false. Make your own mind up, for example.
yeah,
I think what I've found is that if you, for example, David Icke, if you say, "Oh, I saw David Icke talking," oh yeah, he's a nutcase. He talks about lizards. But then if you now say to people, "Oh, Russell Brand was talking about how the UFOs are being covered up by the gut," oh really? They'll listen to you because he's seen now as a bit of a more sane voice. He's
yeah,
like someone that was never had any kind of these sort of controversies around him, and suddenly people are listening to him, and you're not laughed at for listening to Russell Brand anymore.
yeah.
So that's dangerous to
Well,
them. David Icke, yeah, they've done work on him ages ago by saying stuff that, discrediting him here, there, and everywhere.
yeah,
But Russell Brand, oh my God, this is a new kind of celebrity here that is
yeah,
amassing vast numbers of listeners. Can't have it.
yeah, yeah. But so the question is, what is government censorship? And I did a little wiki on this. So it's government censorship is the suppression of speech, public communication, or other information that is considered objectionable, harmful, sensitive, or inconvenient by the government. So that's an interesting.
Online harms bill.
Well,
That's
look,
what it is.
before we haven't got much time, but before I get into that, I'll just quickly go over some of the forms that government censorship can take. So you've got things like blocking or filtering websites and social media platforms, and this happens all over the place. So in China, the government heavily censors the internet and blocks access to
Uh-huh.
many popular websites. On one side of the argument, you could you some people believe that China do this so that their citizens get a much better education and aren't distracted by all the shorts and crap that we watch on.
Yeah.
Anyway, in Russia, the government cracked down on independent media and jailed journalists who've criticized the government. So, I mean, I think pretty much the same as China, really. In Saudi Arabia, the government blocks websites that it deems to be blasphemous or immoral.
Mhm.
So, I mean, uh, and then uh, another way that the government can um, sort of censor is by removing banned books and magazines, movies, and other media. And like in Hollywood, uh, movies are changed slightly for an audience in China.
Yeah.
That's government censorship right there. In February this year, the Russian government banned the book 1984 by George Orwell.
Really?
Yeah,
Russia banned that. Bloody
yeah.
hell.
I mean, it
What
could be the fact that everyone in the West keeps talking about it and relating it to what's been going on. Also in January this year, the Chinese government banned the book Animal Farm by George Orwell. I'm not really sure why. That is a political story
because
as
it's
well, isn't it?
about communism. It's saying that the evils of communism, and
Yeah,
basically China is a communist country.
yeah,
So it's the whole idea of all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
yeah. And I'm pretty sure that the underlying story is just a um like a reflection of the Russian Revolution and the rise of Stalinism, I think.
Yeah.
But in October last year, the this is an interesting one, right? But I'm not going to talk about too much. But in October last year, the Texas State Board of Education said that they were going to remove several books. Florida have done this as well, and it's books like The Handmaid's Tale, Genderqueer, and there's another one, Between the World and Me, and it's they're removing these books from what we would class as primary school age, the library, so primary school age children can't have access to them. And people have made a huge deal about it. You're banning books, it's terrible. But when you look at these books have got pretty pornographic pictures and all sorts within them. So I don't see a problem with that at all because that's all about safeguarding and keeping young people safe. So I don't think anyone can really argue with that one. But it is a consideration that books. It is part of the consideration that books can be banned. Um, Also, governments suppress and alter news reports, and they monitor and harass journalists. In Russia, the government cracked down on independent media outlets in the wake of the invasion of Ukraine. Uh,
Um,
in apparently in March this year, Russia passed a law that criminalizes the spread of false information about the Russian military.
false fake news.
Yep. And the penalties are up to 15 years in prison.
Jesus.
And it's been used to silence journalists and critics of the war as well. In China, the government has got a long history of censoring the media. In recent years, they tightened its control over the internet and social media and cracked down on independent journalists and bloggers. Um, in May this year, they shut down the social media platform WeChat for 24 hours after it was used to spread information about a protest. And I would quite believe that our country would do that as well. Um,
Yes.
in Turkey, the government has also been cracking down on independent media outlets. In June this year, the Turkish government shut down the television channel Tele One for a month after it aired a program that criticized the government's handling of the economy. Now, I was surprised by that from Turkey, but um, in in the USA, the government. What's funny about this? If you try and search for stuff about government censorship, it says that things like in the UK there's no evidence of it. In the USA there's no evidence of it. However, there is because in the USA the government and the mainstream media work together. So this isn't the government cracking down on something. This is the government in collusion with mainstream media work together to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story,
Yeah.
uh, corruption between the Bidens and Ukraine as well. They had a deal with Twitter. Twitter at the time allowed them an account so that they some sort of access, so they could suggest um, uh, what do you call them, accounts to close and block and ban. They did the same with Facebook as well. So the UK and US governments, they've both created their own individual units. We're talking about the 77th Brigade in the UK, and these units were created to deal with disinformation and misinformation, which actually disinformation and misinformation, I'm pretty sure they're two kind of newer kind of words, or is one of them a new word that has just been created since the pandemic? I'm not sure. But
It's
for
double
me,
speak.
yeah, it's double. But for me, it just means that if governments have these kinds of units to control what information is out there, to me, all of a sudden information becomes politicized. So you end up being one of the of one opinion or the other opinion. Um,
I,
and it's
I
like, what does
just
the government want you to know versus what the government doesn't want you to know? Do you know what I mean? And
I
you
just
could go on though, Kev. Like people lost access to bank accounts. This is in
Canada.
Canada, yeah, in Canada, when if they supported the truckers, all of a sudden
Yep.
no access to money. That is shocking. Nigel Farage, not only a few months ago, brought the issue of banks closing his account, and it brought out that tons of other people have had their bank accounts closed or been denied bank accounts just because of their political views. So I mean that is all linked to the government because if it's to do with politics, it's to do with government, isn't it?
I think stuff like censorship's been going on for many, many years, but there's been less outlets to get information. So before you'd only get it from the television, but there's too many of this stuff to control now. And
Yeah,
it's called television programming for a reason, because
yeah.
it's programming you with what they want you to think.
That's a good
Oh,
one. I
what
like
a
that. I like that.
nice way to come to a full circle and end. Television programming, because they're programming your minds. Television, it tells you,
Yeah.
telly, what to think.
Have you just made
Stick
this
to
up?
your
This is
thoughts.
really good. This is good stuff.
Yeah, well, there you go. You can use that. No, actually, I think that's where television and programming comes from. Well, I ever
Mm,
wondered why they called it a programming schedule or television programs? It's a program.
yeah.
Strange word, isn't it?
But then, well, I don't know. I mean, did it originate from? If you can create a program, as in create a program of events.
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends. It depends how you're using the word. Like, yeah, what is? If somebody out there will know the answer to this, but where did the use of that word come from in
Yeah,
terms of
it's
television?
television programs.
Mm,
Program. I saw that on a program on the television. What's a program means? We're programming something. What are you
mm,
programming?
yeah.
So there's one for you to look up for. And telly, it tells you what to think via programming.
There you go.
Mm.
Well, I think we've got a little bit of time just to have a quick look at the online safety bill then, because you mentioned it earlier.
Yep.
And so, like you said, this piece of legislation currently it was being debated. It's moved on now. So
It's
it's
gone
not.
to Royal Assent, so it's passed through Parliament and it's gone to the King to approve that. I
There
mean,
you
that's
go. So
weird that you have to have a king approving what law you're putting through.
yeah, but that's always been the same, hasn't it? The Queen always had to sign off any new kind of piece of law. But this bill aims to make the UK the safest place in the world to be online. This now just think about what that means. The safest place in the world to be online. And when you're online, you are pretty much all over the world instantly.
Mm.
So I'm not really sure how that even really makes sense. But what it does is it requires social media companies and other online platforms to take more responsibility for the content of their sites. So on the face of it, it sounds like, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? It's been welcomed by a lot of people who believe it's necessary to protect, especially young people and vulnerable, like children, from harms such as like child sex abuse, cyberbullying, hate speech. But others have criticised it because, again, it's another well talk about fears. It could lead to more censorship and stifle freedom of expression, which is the freedom of expression bit is my big concern. So I was saying
Yeah.
earlier, I believe that people should be allowed to say whatever the hell they want, and then they don't do it in sort of closed off communities in secret. and build little revolutions. They do it out in the open, and then society in general can just go, "What are you on about? No," and do you know what I mean? And perhaps not people get radicalized. Um,
Yeah.
if let's just say someone had a particular view and you cancelled them, right? That's it. Nobody agrees. Well, we don't agree with your view. You're cancelled from society. Their view is only going to get stronger because of that. If you don't cancel them, let them say whatever they want. At least we know what they think, and I think that's probably a better position to be in. Um,
I suppose their worry is that someone who might not have considered that sort of idea might hear that idea and think, "Yeah, I agree with that," and they
yeah,
recruit. So their worry would be a certain amount of recruitment.
yeah.
Um,
Well, one of the main concerns about the bill is that it would give the government the power to decide what kind of content is allowed online, and this whole thing about government control, government censorship. So that people think that it could lead to the government just censoring like dissenting voices and opinions constantly. Like
well,
if you don't agree with what the government says, which by the way is should be a constant thing, it should always be a debate. That's why they call it like they debate in the House of Commons and stuff, isn't it? It's like everything is a debate because you're always going to get two sort of thought processes, two ideas of how to achieve a goal. Um, if you start closing down conversation and legitimate sort of concerns about what a particular party or what the government want to do, then next thing you know, the government does whatever the hell it wants to do, and and then we just become an authoritarian state, and the people
but
become plebs.
look at the other side of things. You can openly talk about they them pronouns, and there's you can be gender neutral, or
Hmm.
there's more than two genders. But if you say anything against that, you're likely to be censored, even though you can see there are two genders. I know it might be controversial, but I always think that's a form of programming. Do you remember the Star Trek
Yeah.
episode where there are five lights and he's convincing Picard there's only four lights, and he
Oh.
keeps trying to convince him there's only four lights. So he's trying to manipulate him to
Uh-huh.
say there are only four, even though his eyes are telling him something else. The same thing there, like, well, how many genders are there? There's two. No, there are five genders. What? But my eyes are telling me something different. Or
Yeah.
no, your eyes are wrong. We tell you what to believe. And I think there's sort of you use censorship to push your own ideas and
Beliefs.
programming on people and beliefs by
Yeah.
shutting the other side down. So there's no balance to any argument. And you've got to wonder why government are getting involved in this kind of censorship,
Well,
particularly now. What's going to come around the corner next? And I don't want you questioning.
oh, which one?
Oh,
There's so many things.
exactly.
Well, and you're hitting on the exact point I'm thinking as well, right? Because government censorship is often justified in the name of something like national security, public order, or a huge threat to the health of people, and as soon as they start declare, just like Canada is a perfect example, as soon as they start declaring emergencies, they suddenly you find that the government are doing things that people are accepting it as well, which is mad. But I think it's because they instill a fear,
Hmm.
create a public emergency. Like I say, like we've talked about this before. Everything's a crisis at the moment, and everything's a crisis in order to justify something that someone wants to do.
Problem, reaction, solution. Create a problem,
Hmm.
demand a solution, react.
There you go.
Mm.
So. But yes, I mean, government censorship, it can prevent us, the people, citizens, from accessing important information. It can stifle free speech and debate. It can create an atmosphere of fear and intimidation as well, and just undermine democracy and human rights in the main.
Yeah,
It's
I
it's not
concur.
good.
That is a very deep conversation for the day.
It was actually, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. I don't know what anyone else thinks, but send us your thoughts. If
Views
you
on a postcard to PO Box 13. No, we should get a PO Box.
yeah, if you like what we're talking about, let us know, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Anything else, Kev?
No, I think that's it until next time.
Cool. You can find more stuff from me at stephensweeney.co.uk, or check out my comic book at brinkcasefiles.com. Kev?
KevinGroverFiction.co.uk and check out my latest book, Orion, which is on Amazon now.
Yes. And I'm going to do a review for that book very shortly.
Awesome. It'll be my first review.
Slag it off. 1 star.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even give if me review starts off by, if I could give this a 0 stars, I would, but I
I
can't.
would. Sent back for a full refund.
You can find this podcast in all places where you can find podcasts. And until next time, laters.
Bye bye.